Hello and welcome back everyone to yet another edition of A Dragon Ball Conversation. So now for this third edition, we're going to take things into a whole other avenue of the fandom, and we're going to things that are a little more meta. Something that I have a deep connection with. Fan tributes. And to join me is no better person than one of the creators of one of the most influential Dragon Ball comics ever to have graced the internet. The very brilliant and very talented Malik Torihane, the creator of Dragon Ball New Age. Hello, sir.
Hello, how is everybody doing?
Yeah, I'm doing pretty good. How about yourself?
I'm here, I'm ready to chat, I'm very, very excited.
Ah, sweet. So just tell us a little bit about yourself before we go into the deep topic.
My name is Malik Torihane. I'm the creator, the artist and author of Dragon Ball New Age. Still going relatively strong, even though I've had to slow down a little bit. One of the fan tributes, I guess you might say.
Oh, yeah, that's a perfect segue right there. So, as Malik just said, the topic today on A Dragon Ball Conversation is indeed about fan tributes and Dragon Ball in general. Both of us actually have a very good idea about fan tributes, as we both do them. So today we're just going to talk about various comics and animations that we've seen on the internet over our time, and of course Dragon Ball Z Abridged, because how could you not? And of course, what Shueisha's been doing lately, which has actually caused a lot of hype being generated with the so-called Dragon Ball room, but we'll get into that later. One of the first animations that I ever saw that I thought was really cool, at the time obviously, was a Flash animation called Brutality. It was a really good animation and it really inspired me to make my own fan creations. At the time, with Flash being in like version 4 or 5, Malik, what was the first fan tribute that you saw?
I do believe like the first fan tribute that I ever saw on the internet was also a fan animation, though the name or even the origin of it escapes me. I was in the computer area of my local library, and I was looking up Dragon Ball things because that was the only way I had access to the internet at the time. I was in there and I was looking up like Dragon Ball comics, and I came across, it was so weird, it was a crossover between Dragon Ball and Xena Warrior Princess.
Really?
And like I believe that like they told the story like Ares, the god of war, and Xena were actually Saiyans.
Okay, I mean, honestly, that sounds really weird, but honestly, I could dig that. I'd imagine that got people thinking, like, oh my god, we hadn't actually thought about saying women, oh my god. That's actually, at first I was like, what the hell? But then you go like, oh, okay, different spin. I've read worse fan fictions. I think this could be fine.
You have an entire series about worse fan fiction.
That's true. I would say probably if that was written fairly well, that could actually be decent. I'd probably say one of the most iconic Flash tributes that I've ever seen was DBZ in a nutshell, done by Egoraptor. This was like Egoraptor in his teens. Like this is proto Egoraptor, like 2001. Yeah, where he basically did a really crude Flash animation, but the tone was on point. I mean, I think it was just stills of actual images, just with like badly made lip flaps. Yeah, so I think the next part would really be fan expression and you. Malik, I want to just ask you, why do you think that people wish to make DBZ related stuff? What makes people so compelled to actually express their love for Dragon Ball in the way they do?
Honestly, to borrow a phrase from Derek Padula, I believe it's like the dragon soul within everybody. Like for me, for example, when like I was first introduced to Dragon Ball after watching like 2 episodes, and I was an artist at the time as well. After watching only 2 episodes, all of a sudden my brain began to be flooded with all these ideas. I'm just like, oh my god, this is so cool, and I gotta put it down on paper. And it happens not just with Dragon Ball, it happens with every franchise out there. Every franchise has fan characters. Every franchise has fan stories. The Star Wars universe and lore is a perfect example. Before we started getting the prequel movies and now the new movies from the Disney-owned Star Wars, there was an immense expanded universe, and it was all written by people who were fans of the franchise.
I touched on this in my Dragon Ball AF video. I described that people were filling in the void and a desire for a new series after GT ended and was a relative failure in comparison to Z. People were still desperate to see a new series. They hadn't given up hope. The whole rumor about AF just blew up on the internet, and people were using that to fill in the void. But in between the 10 years or so between GT ending and us getting Kai.
Precisely, exactly. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Well, you actually said that really good too. I mean, especially adding Star Wars in there. Now, in terms of like comics, as I was mentioning with AF, there is a lot of them. I mean, just to list some things off the top of my head, all of Toyable's work. We got Derek Perdula's work on Dragon Ball Zero, or the Tibetan edition. That he's doing really well. I mean, you should really go check out his website. It was really funny, actually. When I promoted that comic on my channel, the host of the website thought that there was a massive DDoS attack. That it closed the website and they got redirected to another Russian website. So poor Derek, had to actually contact his host provider and say, no, this isn't an attack. This is genuine traffic. And eventually it got sorted. I broke his website. And then, of course, we've got New Age, and we'll get into that in a moment. Then we got DB0, which was Toyball's thing, the story of Raditz, which I personally consider to be canon because it's just that good and fascinating. The more fantastical Sai, Dragon Ball Sai, which is the one where it's what if Vegeta and Goku's roles were swapped? So Vegeta was sent to Earth? I just love the concept. The concept is there. And then, of course, how could I not forget, there's Multiverse.
Multiverse has been one of my favorites since I discovered it a long time ago. I honestly haven't kept up with it in at least the last year or so, especially with the story right now. I think they're like pulling the story in a lot of different directions, but the art, like from the earlier artist Gogeta Jr. to the current artist Asura, the art is very on point. I love their artwork. If for no other reason, you need to read this because of the art. But before I even go further on Multiverse, I do want to say we also cannot forget another popular fan artist in YoungJiji. In my honest opinion, is my favorite iteration of the AF story.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I actually forgot to mention that in my AF video, that there are two versions of AF which were made into comics, and YoungJiji made one too. I mean, most people consider, now that Toyball's, transitioned into Toyotaro, people would consider that his version to be the definitive version, and I said that on record on my video. But if you want to see another interpretation, so if Toyball's AF version wasn't your cup of tea, there is always YoungJiji's, and I'll include a link to that one in the description.
Yeah, and Gigi is always doing like other things, like he's doing he or she. I'm not honestly sure whether YoungJiji is a male or a female. So, but there's a Bardock after manga, Dragon Ball after manga, and Gigi is always putting up fantastic Dragon Ball art on the tweets. I think it's like there was like a big difference between like Toyball and Gigi. Is like Gigi like came quite a bit after Toyball and is like still like promoting art and like really came up in like the social media generation, whereas Toyball's artwork kind of came up in the infancy.
Oh yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he started his AF version in 2006, I believe. So this was like when YouTube was barely just getting off the ground. It got its reputation through word of mouth and sharing alone. But Gigi's one is like made the most of social media, as you said. It's not just comics. As we touched on earlier, animation is key too. I can actually be one of those examples. I touched on this in my 100k celebration video like back in November. I actually made a Flash animation stuff myself. There was this Flash animator called Ralph Sweeney, and he did loads of stick figure DBZ stuff, which were really, really, really good, considering it was like stick figures. I made my own one, and I made mine really original. I called my character, but the difference is that the second C was a K, to make it just unique. And you can tell how much of an edgelord teenager I was acting like. I included Nickelback in the soundtrack. I am so ashamed by it. But to be fair, in the curated version of the Dragon Ball Z page on Newgrounds at the time, one of those episodes got on the page. So I must have done something right. There have been loads of Flash animations and animations in general. I mean, there is this one guy goes by the YouTube channel Pyroclasm Animations. He has done a couple of fan animations with 3D techniques, but it looks 2D. Reimaginings of classic scenes like Over 9000, when Goku goes Super Saiyan. And these ones are beyond Flash. These are like remarkably good. And then one of the ones I have to touch on, or else people in the comments are going to ask, Absalom. I was in the first episode. Things kind of moved on, our schedules got conflicted, and we had to kind of part company. I only did like a couple of Foley bits in episode 1. Melavelli's work is good. It was very ambitious, and it still is, and it still has a really good following. You know, I applaud Absalom for, putting itself out there and inspiring people to do their own stuff. And speaking of inspiration, let's move on to the biggest thing that I absolutely have to mention. Dragon Ball Z Abridged. How could I not talk about it? I would be doing myself a disservice. Dragon Ball Z Abridged. How we started that was just simply Kaizen Echo absolutely loved doing Dragon Ball and wanted to do his own special and series with all of us, because we all really liked each other's work and we really wanted to kind of show our appreciation for Dragon Ball. At first, Kaiser was really shy and thought that we wouldn't want to work on it because Lanny and I were working on the DBZ movies, Dead Zone and World's Strongest. Taka then convinced Kaiser to ask all of us whether we'd like to take part, and we just jumped on the chance. And ever since then, we've been just going from strength to strength, and Team 4 Star's now a company, we are now doing our own projects, but it all started with Dragon Ball Z. We absolutely love the show and wish to show our appreciation for it. I mean, that's the long or the short of it. That's the abridged version, so trust me, that we're good at this now. So we know how to keep things short. And funny, too. Malik, I have to ask, when was the first time that you saw DBZA or heard about it?
I believe I first heard about it when I was still in college. When you're in college, of course, you're hanging around your friends and everything, and I hung around with the quote-unquote nerdy crowd. They're sitting around watching things, and all of a sudden, I noticed out of the corner of my eye, I could see a laptop out of the corner of my eye, the screen, and I saw Dragon Ball, and I was, the hell is this? And he's like, oh, this is Dragon Ball Z Abridged. You've never heard of this? I'm like, no. He's like, dude, oh my God, you gotta watch it. I'm like, I need to watch this. So immediately I go home after college that day and I start watching Dragon Ball Z Abridged. And shortly after holding my sides because I was laughing so hard, hooked. And I started turning on many, many, many other people that had never heard of Dragon Ball Z Abridged onto the series. And in fact, I went over to my buddy Ben's house one time and I believe binged it for an entire night. I just happened to cross it out of the corner of my eye. Life changed.
Yeah, I mean, our lives changed forever, and honestly, I know it's a very hackneyed and repeated phrase. It really wouldn't have happened without all you guys' support. So out there, thank you very much, and I believe that Malik, you too can appreciate fan interaction and sharing because you have your own thing too, Dragon Ball New Age. I will preface this by saying how I came across this one. I came across New Age just by looking around all these different productions. I read your comic on your DeviantArt page, so feel free to plug that later. I remember reading that the preview and how you rejigged a bit of GT's plot, and I just remember, I think not only was the art really, really good, but I also kept thinking, you know what? This is actually plausible. Everything of this could have happened. So I was just nodding my head going, hey, that's pretty good. I liked it. Let's just go back to how you came up with it. How did you start it and why did you want to make New Age?
I believe, like we touched on earlier, it was just wanting to fill a void. Because at the time when I started watching Dragon Ball Z, all we had was the Ocean dub. So we only had a fixed amount of episodes, and that was it. It started all in high school as I started watching Dragon Ball Z. The first iteration of Dragon Ball New Age was actually called Dragon Ball Z New Age, like so many other fans do, because at the time, all I knew about was Dragon Ball Z. I mean, at the time, I didn't know what GT was. I only knew about Dragon Ball Z. I didn't even know what Dragon Ball was at the time. until I started going to until I went to a comic book store and found out that there was Dragon Ball comics and Dragon Ball Z comics. So I started buying them, and that's how I got introduced to the original series of Dragon Ball. At first, all I would do is I would take like printer paper, and I would take about 24, 30 sheets, something like that, and I would staple them together, and I would make just really crude fan comics on those just for my own amusement, because the internet didn't exist at that point. I took a break from it for a while. Then I started watching more Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, and then I started back up again after I had gotten out of college. It was right around the time I had started college and then gotten out of it is when I started Dragon Ball New Age in the iteration that people might know today. I mean, so this has really been a tremendous labor of love for Dragon Ball New Age because I believe this is the third or fourth version of the story as I'm writing it right now. Right now, like the version that I'm putting out right now, even with the revamps, it's probably the best that I can possibly write.
You actually started selling through Amazon, I believe, an actual comic version of New Age, and I think you've got put out at least 2-3 of them so far?
3 volumes right now. I'm currently working on volume 4. The thing that I want like some people to understand is that I never did Dragon Ball New Age for money. The only reason I made those hardcover books is because people wanted them. I always upload free pages first, so you don't have to pay to read it at all. It's just those comics are for the people who want to own physical copies. And for those people who want to own those physical copies, I include little bonus things in there for them to actually put forth their hard-earned money to buy that particular book. And I'm trying to work on getting volume 4 out as soon as possible.
Cool. I mean, I can attest to that, Malik, because, we at DBZA never started doing this just to be popular or for money or anything. It's because we had a passion for Dragon Ball, and that's what kept us going. And I imagine that's what keeps you going, too.
Yes, exactly. I tell my readers all the time that if it had been just me, I probably would have stopped a long time ago. I mean, I remember when I was first putting out the first iteration of Dragon Ball New Age without the Z on DeviantArt. I believe I got like midway through chapter 3, and I think I stopped for almost 5 years. All of a sudden, I went back, I revamped the art, and I got like a surge of creativity, and I just plowed through an immense amount of the story. It got spread everywhere. It got translated into a bunch of different languages. People were making videos of it for YouTube. But like I said, if it had just been me, and if it hadn't been for people demanding and asking for more Dragon Ball New Age, it would have stopped a long time ago.
Wow. And in terms of like time, where do you actually wish to see it and you in about 5 years' time?
Well, I mean, to be perfectly honest, I didn't even think I would be where I'm at right now in the amount of time that it took me to be here. At some point, like, I make no bones about it that I want to be able to do Dragon Ball New Age and the original mangas that I work on full time. I don't promote the books as much, but I do promote them. And I promote like my Patreon page as much as I do, because the other thing is I need the fan support in order to do that full time and go back to when I was basically, like I said, doing Dragon Ball New Age full time for like 6 years. Now I started redrawing since January, and the most I've put out so far is the 7 pages of the last History of Rigor special. With my current job and everything the way it is, I just simply don't have the time to dedicate the time that I want to Dragon Ball New Age. Hopefully, within the next 5 years, I could start picking things back up. Perhaps, maybe, my Patreon or my book sales, I'll have enough books out at the time that what little money that they do bring in for me will start accumulating enough where I could start dedicating more time to Dragon Ball New Age, and hopefully within 5 years, I will be able to say that I'm doing Dragon Ball New Age and my original books full time.
Well, that's great, and I really do wish you every single success. And who knows, we might actually see the name Torihane knocking around the Shueisha Dragon Ball room in the fullness of time. So, for those of you who don't know, the Dragon Ball room is Shueisha and I think Toei's little campaign to actually get loads of talent from the internet space to make side stories of Dragon Ball. And one of the biggest one was Dragon Garo Lee's What If Yamcha Was the Hero, which is the story of a guy who loves Dragon Ball, is either knocked out or killed and is reincarnated as Yamcha, but he knows the entire story of Dragon Ball. So he actually makes the most and actually goes to train with Goku and becomes really strong and is basically one of the strongest characters in the series now. And it's amazing. There is one chapter out, there's going to be a second chapter out in the summer, and I believe that there's a rumor going around that another comic they got in line is The Day in the Life of a Frieza Soldier. What it's like to actually work for Frieza. I love that creativity, and who knows, we might see some of your work being promoted there, so you never know. We'll just have to watch this space. But I think this is the right good time to get to a conclusion, Malik. I think fan tributes are going to persist for years to come because honestly, they've been around ever since Dragon Ball and the internet became a thing, and it's just going to keep getting bigger and bigger, don't you say?
Indeed. I mean, to be perfectly honest, I don't think we would have like Dragon Ball Super. We wouldn't have the films and such that we do without fan tributes, without, your guys' Dragon Ball Z Abridged, without, the fan comics and the numerous, countless amounts of stories that are out there. I don't think they would have seen that there's so much demand and so much love for Dragon Ball that they might not have picked the franchise back up. We might have only just had video games for the remainder of time without fan tributes.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I would have been personally okay with just having a movie every 2 years. I mean, that was fine in itself, wasn't it? Like, it's a good idea. Yeah, it's like every 2 years we can go, oh boy, another Dragon Ball Z movie, awesome. But now we got Super, and it had a rocky start, obviously, but now it seems just to be getting better and better with each and every arc. But yeah, I think that's a really good spot to end. So thank you for joining me, Malik, on this Dragon Ball conversation. So now this is the time for you to promote whatever you wish to. So just get out your social medias and your websites and your patrons.
If you would like to follow me on social media, you can find me on Twitter. You can also find me on Instagram at MalikDBNA, though I don't upload there that much anymore. You can find me on DeviantArt at MalikStudios.deviantart.com. And you can find me on Patreon if you wish to support me on a month-to-month basis. You can find me there. I also do Twitch streams Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at midnight called Once Upon a Midnight Streaming. My Facebook page, facebook.com/DBNewAge, all one word. You can find me there. I always, on Twitter and on Facebook, I always promote when I'm doing Once Upon a Midnight Streaming, I'll either usually promote throughout the day or about a half hour before the stream starts. And then I also have Saturday streams, which I do a longer stream, usually on Saturdays between the hours of, I usually start around 3 and we'll go to between 5 p.m. and 6, all Eastern Standard Time, by the way.
Oh, that's great. Cool. So thanks very much for that. And, we'll be sure to plug all those things too. But, yes, thank you for joining me, Malik. And now it's the time of the show to ask, what do you guys think? What do you think is the state of affairs for fan tributes of Dragon Ball today, and where do you find it's going to go? Also, what was your favorite fan comic or animation from back in the day or even today? Just leave a comment below and let's get this conversation going in the comments. But anyway, that's just about it for today's Dragon Ball conversation. Thank you very much, Malik, for joining me. And until next time, guys, be sure to like and subscribe. Catch you later.